Welcome to the latest edition of Anyone, Anywhere, Anytime with me, Marshan Kenny. Well, today's show is going to be packed with stories of 90s nasty bunch football. That's right, many of you today is with my great friend and former teammate, a guy I was captain with on that 97 football team, Southern Miss Hall of Famer, Lytrel Pollard. Well, you know I love fan interaction and fan comments for this show, and that's going to come in this next segment that we call Four and Out. Well, this week on Twitter, I asked the Southern Miss Nation, what are some keys for Southern Miss football to be successful in 2023? I had a lot of good comments, a lot of good interaction, but I can only get to four because the name of the segment is Four and Out. First up from Twitter, Andy Borley, whose Twitter handle is @StayGoldenAnge. For the past two seasons, he said we've had quarterback problems. This year, we've got a lot of quarterbacks to try out. Hopefully, we find one that clicks and takes us to the top. Good stuff right there, Andy. Next up, @ToTheTopNation, winning the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball and effectively getting to the opposing quarterback. I believe our offense will finally be able to open up the playbook, and Coach Hall will show his offensive expertise. #SMTTT. Good stuff right there. Next up, @Mallory Evans is short and sweet and to the point right here with what she has to say. She says, find a solid, stable quarterback. I notice a theme right here with quarterbacks going. And then finally, A.W. Middleton, whose Twitter handle is @NoskCadge001. Yeah, that's the handle. He says, we had enough good D last year to win the SBC. We had a good enough line and running back. We had good enough wide receivers. What's the one factor we were missing? And I think he's getting a quarterback. And he says when he was in Jackson recently, Coach Hall said he's very impressed with the two new quarterbacks and that we would finally get to see his offense this year. And yeah, I'm ready for that offense to explode in 2023. Thanks for all the comments. I always appreciate it. Keep them coming in. Well, this interview is going to be so awesome today. It's with a guy I admire to the utmost. He was a great teammate of mine from 94 to 97. He's in the Southern Miss Hall of Fame. He's the pride of Stringer, Mississippi, the one and only Lytrel Pollard. Well, one of the best defensive players in the history of Southern Miss football is my guest today, Lytrel Pollard. He's somebody I admired and respected to no end when I played with him in our senior year. Man, we were team captains together, still one of the biggest honors of my life. So, Lytrel, with all that said, man, how are you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm happy to be on here with you. Just got through practice. It's about 105 degrees out there today, and I just feel good to be inside in the air conditioning.
Man, we were talking about the heat just before, man. 100 and some degrees. I don't miss all that practice. So, man, make sure you're drinking your water and keep everybody hydrated. I know that, man. But, Lytrel, it was so awesome last year, man. I mean, we go back a long time, man. And you finally got respected and admired to the utmost and got put in the Southern Miss Hall of Fame, which was something I thought was so long overdue. How'd that make you feel, man, going to that hall?
When I got that phone call, you see people on the NFL and college get inducted in the Hall of Fame, the emotions that they have because people finally appreciate what you actually done. Everybody don't have all the top numbers. Everybody don't get all the accolades. But, being a teammate, there's some things that some guys do in that locker room, in that dorm, in the meeting room. And finally get that phone call, I was like, yes, my work finally paid off. And, that was one of the happiest days of my life.
Man, it was long overdue. I mean, you led the team in tackles in 97 on the team Coach Bauer considers the greatest of all time. So congratulations once again, man, to being a Hall of Fame member. And with all that said, man, you've been big in the coaching ranks for the past several years, and you're currently the Jones Junior College defensive coordinator going in your 5th season. Man, how's that been at Jones, man, and getting into the season?
Well, it's been good. Steve Buckley's the head coach, which he was the running back coach, actually, our senior year, Coach Harold and so I've been knowing him. And, a lot of guys that's working there on offense, they was at Southern Miss when I was there with Todd Monken. So it's almost a junior college Southern Miss staff. So, it's only one person on our staff that hasn't worked at Southern Miss. Slade Buckley, our head coach, his son, he grew up being an Eagle. So that's all we sit around and talk about Southern Miss football.
Oh, that's awesome. Those guys do some good times in the coaching room, man. Just talking a lot of Southern Miss football stuff every now and then. So cool. But with your football career, man, and what a storied one it is, it all had to start somewhere. And I've heard about you so much, being the pride of Stringer, man. Stringer High School. You were a 3-sport star in football, baseball, basketball. But let's talk a little football here. You played both sides of the ball: football, fullback, tight end, linebacker. How about those Stringer days, man? They still talk about you in those parts.
Well, that was the best days of my life. And one of my USM teammates, Heath Graham, we was high school teammates, played quarterback for us. And so, we, in order to win, we won 3 state championships, only lost 3 games my first 3 years in high school. And it's never been done before like that at my school. And, they remember that stuff. And so I appreciate them. I go back every time. When I go home, I go by the school. That's the only way I go home. I go by the school. I don't stop all the time, but I look and soak it in and just remember all the good days that we had.
Yeah, man. As this show is growing, as I've done it, I mean, I was going to have you on pretty soon, but you have no idea how many people from Stringer said, "When's Lytrel Pollard getting on, man?" So I'm like, well, here we are. And but yeah, man, you had an unbelievable career right there playing football. 3 consecutive state championships, like you said. But when it got time to college, you were a big recruit, much bigger than I was. You had offers from Texas, Clemson, Arkansas, Mississippi State, among others. Why did you choose Southern Miss of all those teams?
Well, when you look at Southern Miss, it's a bunch of guys that's country people. You don't really know them. With no social media back then. So everybody on the team you either played against or somebody that you knew played against them. And you knew what type of football player they were. And growing up, I was real close with my parents, my mom and my dad. And so I didn't want to take that opportunity that they had to watch me every Friday night in high school and go off somewhere where they might get 1 or 2 ball games. And then Southern Miss was known for defense. I knew I was going to college to play defense, and why not go play for the Nasty Bunch? If you go play for somebody, play for the Nasty Bunch.
There you go. And back then, it's funny. People talk about the Nasty Bunch. I don't know that's historically the name. Man, if you remember, when we first got there, we were called the Black Attack.
I know it.
Man, that title was hard, man. I had the cap, the Black. Do you remember that?
And I tell folks that all the time. I said, this started, they call about Coach Crummer the Nasty Bunch way back then. But you're right. It was the Black Attack, and it was black attacking you. And so that's when you put on that all black, you knew right then this is about to be a long night for somebody.
Heck yeah, man. In 93, I had redshirted. Your first year, 94, my redshirt freshman year. And when I saw you come on campus, it was pretty obvious you didn't need the redshirt, man. This frame you had, the way you were built. I was like, man, I got to hit the weight room a little bit more to get like Latrell. So you were ready to go as a freshman, man. But speaking of that freshman year, what were some things that maybe you remember as my introduction to college football?
Well, my first introduction was, we used to practice right there beside Highway 49, where they got the business building now, that used to practice at. And we get in stretch lines, and back then the stretch line was the depth chart. And so I'm coming from winning all these state championships, and all of a sudden I'm playing linebacker, and I'm way back in line number 4. I said, wow, this is a long way to the top. So, everybody up front talking, I'm sitting back there nervous and, playing for JT, he didn't hard to play with you. So I was like, oh man, here we go.
Man, some of those early introductions, I remember I was my first year in 93, I was way back in the stretch lines too, man. It's humbling. It's humbling.
It is.
But,
and then they put you on the opposite field. They put all of the 4-string guys practice on one field with the GAs, and then they took all the good guys on the other field with the coaches. I said, oh man, they don't even want to watch me.
We couldn't even practice with them. That's how low they thought of us and how low they made us feel. I forgot about that. Yeah, deep in the stretch lines. You're not even on the same field.
Sitting you on a different field with 2 GA, with 2 coaches over there. A defensive GA and offensive GA. That's all we had.
Oh, man, that was it. Man, some of those practices, like I said, man, you and me, I just feel like I came up through the ranks with you more than anybody else because we were linebackers coming up at the same time. And, man, we talked about this a little bit. Remember machine gun drills? We're on knees during linebacker individual practices. And, we had whoever could shoot their hands in the fastest. Remember those machine gun drills?
I still do that drill now with my corner.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a
Quick
big
hands,
time
man.
drill.
Yes, indeed, man. But do you remember kind of when we first got there, man? We kind of had this fraternity built pretty much immediately, and that was Van Hall. Man, what did Van Hall mean to you? Because to me, it was kind of like this special fraternity we had that was also, part of this football team.
I think that's what's half wrong with college football now. The guys are not family. They stay different places. But when I got to Van Hall and I got dropped off, and 2.5 floors was nothing but the team. And so, you was in your comfort zone. If you needed something, guys were there to talk to you. Guys were there to kind of give you a hard time about being, way back in the depth chart, or you ain't do this and you ain't do that. But when I started seeing people when school started, when they walked by Van Hall, everybody had a respect for that. You just didn't walk by Van Hall and, don't speak. Or if we didn't like you, you couldn't walk by Van Hall no way. You had to walk all the way around with the Bun Hall or something like that.
Oh, heck yeah, man. That was a special place, man. There's so many stories to tell, but, we'd have to put an unedited version of the show to get details of some of them stories, Latrell.
Oh, yeah, I did that.
But what a special place to live it wasn't at that time. Man, thinking of your freshman year, it was pretty obvious, man. I mean, just looking at you, the way you played, the way you moved, the way you hit people, you were going to be a special player. What's some moments maybe from your freshman year, games, things like that you remember most?
The biggest one, my first game was against Tulane in the Dome. And I can remember my arms just bumps coming up, just chills all over me. Of course, you grew up watching the New Orleans Saints. My dad was a big Saints fan. And now all of a sudden his son is in the Superdome getting ready to play football. And I just had chills all over me. That game was big. And then how we finished the year in LSU. I'd never forget that moment in Tiger Stadium, how they was throwing liquor bottles at us when we was walking in the stadium. And I said, boy, I call them coon A's in Louisiana. They just had no respect for us. And I was looking for them when the game was over. You couldn't find them.
Man, what a special night that was. I'm a Louisiana guy. I loved all that stuff. Remember, security had to kick us out.
Yeah, they was playing. That was rough.
Heck yeah, man. Well, your freshman year, man, kind of wraps up, but it's pretty obvious you're going to be a great player, man, getting the sophomore year. And kind of transitioning from your freshman year to sophomore year, where you feel like, I got all the tools to play college football, man. What did it feel like going into your sophomore year?
Going into the game had slowed down. The game slows down.
That's the way to put it. Yeah, great way to put it.
The game slows down a lot. You get a better concept of, what we're doing on defense. You get able to play more than one position. And so once the game slows down, you can go back to your natural talent. You can play off your ability. And once that happened, and then I got used to the coaching because it was a lot different, between JT, Coach Womack, Tyrone Nix, Randy Butler. Those guys, they were different compared to coming from a little small school where they always patted you on the back and said, it's okay, get them next time, until that was rough. And so I was used to that by my sophomore year, and I was just ready to go play football.
Oh, heck yeah, man. And you were making an impact. I mean, they had a game in Tennessee where you really started seeing the field like a lot, man. And it was obvious you're going to be good. You remember that Tennessee game? I mean, it's 100,000 people. I mean, you played a lot.
A lot. And, you got Peyton Manning on the other side. And I was like, wow, this dude, that's when you knew you was on the field with a really, really good quarterback. But, we didn't shy away. It was a hard game, but it was fun. It was fun. My sophomore year, my funnest game, though, was, I think they called it sellout 9-5. The first game of the year, me and Tyrone Bowe were on kickoff coverage, and he's talking, I'm going to beat you down there, I'm going to beat you down there. And we running side by side, and I get to about the 35-yard line on the other side, and he disappears. I get down there, we made the play. I turn around, he's laying on the ground. He got knocked out.
Oh.
So he didn't play no more of that game. That's when I knew concussions were real. I said, Tyrone, I thought you going to beat me. He said, man, they knocked me out. I'm sorry, they knocked me out. That was my funnest moment my sophomore year when he disappeared.
Oh, man, that's funny. And Tyrone Bowe, anybody doesn't know, real great fullback for us back then. Wound up being team captains with me, Latrell, Pat Surtain, and by our senior year. So Tyrone was a really good player. That's a great story right there. I remember that because you remember The Rock we'd have big crowds, good crowds, but we never sold it out, man.
Correct.
And that was
And
special that
theme.
night.
Yeah, that was the theme for that year, starting the season. So it was fun.
Heck yeah, man. And but getting back into coaching, you had talked about some of the guys coaching us, and John Thompson, man, just one of the most animated, best leaders, just when you're down, pick you up type guys I've ever run in my life, father figure to guys like you and me, just mentor guy. What was it like being in a John Thompson defense back then?
It was wonderful because if you got on the field, you earned it. He didn't give you nothing. So once you went out there in that huddle, he said, first group, second group, whatever was up, when he put you on the field, you earned it. And so I can't say that by him. He held you to a higher standard. You had the D-line, you had the DBs and all that, but he held us to a higher standard. And I carry that on right now with my guys, my position group, even though I'm the coordinator. I tell my guys, I'm holding you to a higher standard. We're not like them. We different. And so that's still within me right now in my coaching profession.
Oh, man, that's interesting. If you don't mind going further a little bit on that, do you find like a lot of the style that JT coached and things that he did, you have carried over a lot in your coaching profession?
Oh, yeah. I probably 50% of what we do on defense is what I played in because I believe in it. I believe in guys getting athletes on the field, giving them misdirection stuff, not knowing where we coming from. And so the guys like playing in the system. I tell them about the guys that coach me and where they coached at and where it come from. So when you're coaching the junior college kid, you're like, wow, this coach here, he coached there, and we in this system. So it means a lot to him. It means a lot to me to continue the tradition of the black attack and the nasty bunt, the base core system that me and you both played in.
Heck yeah, man. That's a great transition. Kind of, we were getting out your sophomore year, getting into our junior year in '96, man. Coach Thompson, we were a 4-3 defense when you and I first got there, but heading that '96 season, him and some of the coaches go around and develop this wild blitz, crazy 3-4 type scheme. And it was really nothing like people were doing in college football, man. Do you remember when he came back with that scheme for us and this blitz? We're coming with like a bunch of gnats.
Just got a name with a bunch of numbers behind it that you had to remember your numbers. And I still do that now. I still do. It still works. Like everybody call themselves having these gurus doing all this stuff on defense now. But when I be talking to Coach Thompson and Tyrone, I said, man, we were doing this stuff when I was playing in '96 and '97. They just done recycled it all over again. Now they're making a whole lot of money doing stuff we did 20 years ago.
Man, I remember when he came back with the system, I was like, man, how am I going to learn all this? I wasn't very good academically. Let's just call it what it was. But he made it simple. He put numbers in a quick title. It was like Bam 27 or whatever, Mike Bandit linebacker. And then go to 2 and 7 hole. Made it easy, thank goodness.
Yep. Draw them circles up there, put the even numbers, put the odd numbers.
Yeah, I mean, you were smarter than me. Yeah, you were smarter than me. You could have figured out a big book of plays, but I needed to keep it simple.
Latrell. You still have to keep it simple.
Yes, indeed. Makes you play faster. But man, getting that '96 season, I mean, you are the solidified starting outside linebacker, man. I mean, you're the guy. And we're going to Georgia to kick off that season with this brand new system that nobody really had ever seen in college football. And Georgia was confused and dazed, and you wound up leading the team in tackles with 18 tackles in one of the biggest wins in Southern Miss history, man. Talk about that day, that game, playing between the hedges and winning.
Well, I was excited about the new system because, line up in the Okie front, it allowed me to be more athletic. It let you use your athleticism instead of sitting there in the base 4-3 where they know exactly where you're going to be at. And then them big old linemen used to just tee off on you. And, so then getting in that system and going to play Georgia between the hedges, my first true collegiate start, I was just excited. I thought about being back in high school. I put that day being back in high school. I said, I'm just going to go out here and have fun and let it loose and just let my ability take over. And so it was fun. It was a lot of fun. And, you, TJ, Burns, Walthall, Posey, we just was everywhere. And it was fun.
Man, at that point, we were so talented, man. The names you just said right there, and I mean, you were so dang quick and talented for your size, man. I mean, we just became a dangerous defense. I mean, do you remember as we got into that season? I mean, our rankings, we were top 10, top 5 in a lot of categories. Man, didn't you start feeling this like, damn, we're pretty badass? Did you feel like that?
Like, it was pretty good. You look out wide, you got Pat and Jamal them out there playing secondary. We were really, it wasn't a weakness. You had to find some. Robert Brown, one of the most athletic people I ever been around on the football field. You know, he just came before his time. You know, if he was this time playing football, athletic he was, he'd been making money. So it was fun. We were good.
We were real good. Man, Rob Brown, when I think of him, I think of our defensive end, for anybody that doesn't know back then, who played the years in CFL, but he used to squat 700 pounds, 800 pounds.
A lot. With them big old wide feet. His feet were so wide. It was like elephant feet. He was big, strong.
I mean, we were strong cats, but I watch him power clean. I'm like, dude, how are you doing this? Golly. So
he was different.
Different, no doubt about it, man. And you were definitely different, man. The way you played and get back on the field, man. So we're making a run. We end up being 8-1, man. And I think we are, in our minds, the best defense in America. That's what I felt like. I did. Yeah. And so we're 8-1, and we go to Houston in '96. And it's something I can't explain, Latrell. I don't think you can or anybody can. It was like the Twilight Zone. We just forgot how to play defense and lost that game 56-49. Explain that night to me, because I still can't. Latrell.
The most embarrassing game of my life. You go in, all you have to do is win. And we finally get points. You know, you finally playing defense, and we get 40-something points, and we lose. I would have never bet on it in a day of my life. And so go out there and, you know, coach is calling and what he's calling, and we just don't make plays. And they were running the football. That's the thing that you don't supposed to do on us. You know, that big back was running it. We got him paid. We put him in the NFL that night in Houston. And so that crushed me. I have no explanation besides we kept reading the newspaper clippings, you know, and so we thought it was really good, and they woke us up.
Man, they woke us up. I mean, Antoine Smith ran through us, man. I can't explain it, Latrell. If there's a game, if there's one I could have back, it's that one. Just so we stop reading the press clippings and stop believing how good we were. I think that's what happened that night, man.
Yeah, exactly.
But dang, Trell, we finished 8-3, top 25 most of the season, a win at Georgia. And damn it, we don't go to a bowl. Man, how bad did that hurt you? Because that hurt me, man. It just weren't as many bowls back then.
It wasn't, and we done all that work. You know, you started off really, really good, and all of a sudden you get ready to play your last game. You going to get ready for workouts. I'm like, oh, man, this ain't it. This is not it. It put a bad taste in my mouth. It made me respect the game of football a lot more. You could be humbled at any given Saturday night, Saturday evening. Always respect the game of football. And so that's what it taught me.
Man, was that humbling, man. Watching the bowl season that year, watching Houston in the Conference USA champ, the Liberty Bowl. I couldn't watch games, man. I turned off the TV. I couldn't watch. It was made me sick to watch bowl games, man. It was humbling. But you know what that did? You know what that did for guys like you and me, type A personalities, ain't gonna take crap from anybody? It built that theme that they called unfinished business leading into the next season. And man, what did that unfinished business theme mean to you?
It meant that we screwed up, and now I got to make up not only for my teammates, for the fans, for Hattiesburg, and all the fans everywhere else, because we was coming back, and we was coming back with a vengeance.
That we were coming back with a vengeance, man. And one thing about that '97 team, you know, we'll kind of get in all the details because dang, you and I made an impact in Southern Miss lore. But man, we were so good. This is how I like to look at it. They started Eagle Walk in 1997. I like to think that Southern Miss was like, these guys are so good. We got to do something even more for them. Let's start Eagle Walk. Is that what you think? Why they started Eagle Walk?
They wanted to see us. They wanted to see us before we get in there and do our thing. So I appreciate it. I really do. Because it was different. The Eagle Walk, you know, coming out of the dorm and walking all the way around the stadium and coming back the other side. And I enjoyed it. It was hot half the time because we was playing at 2 o'clock. But Coach Bauer, you made you put them clothes on. Wasn't no such thing, no warm-ups. You gonna have a tie on or some slacks. But it was fun.
Yeah, and that's a great way to put it, man. Coach Bauer did create as much of a professional atmosphere, getting us ready for life as he could have, man. Wearing ties at Eagle Walk, wearing ties on trips and what have you, looking professional. Man, speaking of Coach Bauer, though, how was that being coached by him?
Man, he was just an honest man. Anytime you're around him, if you ask a question, if you didn't want the truth, don't ask him the question. And he treated us fair. He was a player's coach to me. He was hard. He demanded a lot of us. But when he talked to you, he talked to you like he was somebody. He always he thought about life a lot more than he thought about football to me, because I wouldn't be in the situation I am now if it wasn't for him talking about the game, the life after football. And so he let you enjoy the moment, but he always talked about the moment after football.
Man, that's a great way to put it. And, whenever I got off track and being a wiry young college student, he quickly got me back on track. I'll tell you that right there. He was a great mentor, life leader, and just, that's a great way to put it, Charles, right there. So getting back in this 97 season, it's unfinished business. I mean, let's keep it real. When I looked at the talent we had, especially on defense, were you like me and like, we're going to be really good?
Oh, ain't no doubt we're going to be really good. It was going to be fun. It was going to be a lot of fun. It made the guys in practice on the other side of the ball. In 97, you got Harold in the backfield, him and Booth. You got Pink, Sherrod outside. It's just, I said, okay, now we got a little offense, baby. Let's roll. Let's go.
Man, I felt we were so good. So our first game, it's at Florida, defending national champs on primetime ESPN, man. In my mind and your mind and everybody on the team's mind, I'm like, we're going to win. We're going to win this game. And you have a monster game. Lead the team in tackles with 13. I mean, defense does their thing. Latrell, if we just had a little more offense, and I've joked with Lee Roberts on this show a couple times, just a little more offense, Lee, if you're watching this. Am I right? We win that game, man.
Oh, we win it easily.
Easy.
Was it 21?
The little offense.
Was it 21?
21-6.
And they had to earn all those now. After so long, you play so long, they were defending national champ. So they gonna get something. But you couldn't tell me we wasn't good as Florida in 97. We was just as good. Should have been.
Should have beaten the defending national champs on the road in the swamp. And just a little more offense, Lee. I'm going to stop right now. Please watch this. I'm going to stop right now. But, man, getting into that season, though, we start rolling along. We're top 25. We just got a squad right there. What are some other moments maybe during that season that you remember besides the Houston game? Because I do want to talk about that one. Anything besides the Houston game?
The Cincinnati game, which, playing Cincinnati back then was really, really – they were tough. It was always a tough game. And when you go to Cincinnati, it might be 300 people in the stand. They had nobody supporting you. And playing that night, it was real, real cold. And it was one of those back and forth games. And it was a game that we grew. If in 96, we'd have lost that game in Houston. But in 97, defensively, we said, no more of this. And then, if I'm not mistaken, Pat got that interception late in the ball game. We win it on defense. We're playing good on both sides. But we stood up to the occasion to go there and win that ball game on defense the way we did. I knew right then it was going to be really, really special.
Man, you hit on something to get in the mindset of a college football player, too. And a lot of college football players watching this would agree, I think. When you go on a road game and there's not a lot of people in the stands, when you're used to like this rowdy atmosphere, rowdy crowds, all of a sudden, it's like Cincinnati, there was really nobody there. I mean, talk about adjusting your mindset to just that's a complete mindset change with no crowd. Like it's hollow. It's a hollow.
You had to go into your practice mode. So like you do in practice, have all that fun with each other. Ain't nobody to motivate you, to get you going, rah and all that. You got to do it with each other. And so I think with us having unfinished business, that's all we needed to say. It could have been 2 people in the stands. We would go play the same way if it was 200,000.
Man, you're right about that. What a theme, and what a big win right there. And, we're rolling along, man, and doing our thing. It does set up that Houston game. And if you ask me when the schedule came out before the season. We could have gone 0-10, Latrell. We had to beat Houston. I had it circled. What, was that the game you had circled? I mean,
No, it not only had to beat them, it had to be domination.
Bad. Beat
Bad.
their ass.
Yeah. It had to be embarrassing to them. That's all I wanted to do. Embarrassing. And we did it.
Man, Troy, you know, I like to talk smack. You're a good smack talker too, man, but I can't remember a game where I talked more crap than against Houston. I
Because they
hated
never crossed the 50-yard line. That's hard for somebody to say. They kept a college team forever crossing the 50-yard line in 4 quarters. That wasn't happening. You know, every time the ball was snapped, it was straight bullying. I know people don't like to say bullying, but we straight bullied them for 4 quarters.
Latrell, that's a great way to put it. I don't approve of bullying, but that day, guys like Latrell and that nasty bunch defense were a bunch of bullies against Houston. I don't care what you say. We bullied them.
We did. We shook their hands when it was over with, but for that 4 quarters, it was turnover. Dad is here. I'm giving it to you.
Heck yeah, man. And that game all summarized by the hit. Pat Surtain nearly decapitating that receiver. I mean, nowadays, you know, he'd get thrown out the game, but back then that was football.
That was
you
football.
Remember the hit?
The hit. And that's still the hardest hit I've seen in the Rock. that dude, I thought it was a mouthpiece, and it was a tooth. You know, he killed that dude. And that was the stamp of the ball game. Okay, now we're done.
That was it. I remember looking at Houston's offense, and they were done. They were like, this game's over with. And then 33-0 was that.
It was like, okay, let's get this over with before somebody get hurt. Because we were trying to hurt him.
Somebody else gets hurt.
Yeah.
Final score 33-0. I think the weather was a little bad, or else it'd have been 60-0, man. But that was it. Just complete shutout win, a conference, and at the Rock. And do you remember, dude? This is one people forget about. They tore the goalpost down. The fans.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody talks about that. About the TCU in 03, and I remember that. But they tore the goalpost down. We were the originators of that.
Exactly.
Am I wrong?
Oh, you're right. Because we going to a bowl game. So
right.
We didn't let them down. You know, we let them down in 96, and we held true to who we were in 97.
Absolutely, man. And that led to what was a gold standard for Southern Miss at that point, man. And the Liberty Bowl in Memphis. And how was that week in Memphis for you back in New Year's Eve, 1997?
The best time of my life. You know, I felt like I was in NFL because we're in a hotel, we're going to practice, and, you know, you're doing all this stuff, you're getting ready, and then you hear all the chatter from, you know, Pittsburgh, you know, this small USM, you know, there ain't nobody, and I'm like, okay, here we go again. Waking up the sleeping giant, we gonna show up. But it was fun. Got to, you know, see your teammates in a different atmosphere, how we acted, and seeing different fans, and I loved it. I loved the bowl game. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, man. And there's certain aspects to our career together that I remember most. And like I told you, there wasn't a player on the team, considering we're both linebackers, and the way you handled yourself on and off the field that I admired and respected more. And I don't know if you remember this, before the Liberty Bowl game, the seniors got a chance to stand up and talk. We're all in the room before we head out to the locker room. And, man, you know, I asked you to stand up, and I just, you know, I tried to pour my emotion and admiration for you, man. And I'm trying not to ball cry, but it was at that moment there were just so many bonds shared and so much built family-wise almost that, man, Pitt didn't stand a chance. You remember that senior, this talk?
Yeah, you know, it's almost like a celebration, a homegoing celebration where you memorializing somebody, you know, because that comes from Van Hall. That comes from those 3 to 4 years where we laid in the same building. We went to sleep. You know, we borrowed $5. You know, we shared pizza, whatever you had to be. And that was coming to, you know, we was getting ready to start a new chapter. And so when you get to the last page of a good book, you don't want the book to end. And so we knew the book was about to end, and we had to sign off at the end, but it was going to be a real good story before we put our signature on it. So it was rough, but it energized me because it was cold that day now. Do you remember?
Ooh, it was cold.
It was cold.
It was cold, man.
But it energized me. It gave me my warmth inside because my heart was warm.
Heck yeah, man. And what I remember most, one of my biggest honors, man, I was team captain, and you were team captain with me, along with Lytrel Tyrone Bower and Pat Surtain, the four of us. And, back then there wasn't the internet. I didn't know how many people were going to be at the game. I didn't. But we were team captains coming out before the Liberty Bowl game. And I remember we're starting to walk out the tunnel, and I turn and look out the tunnel, and I got a great picture of it, man. I'll put it on the show. I'd love to talk about this. And, but man, I looked up, and Trell, half of Hattiesburg was in Memphis, man. The energy coming down from these fans and the band on us. And I was just like, we are not losing today, man. That moment, do you remember that moment coming out the tunnel as captain?
I remember. Then I knew. I said, okay, here we go. They love us. Now let's give them something to be proud. The emotion. Being a team captain, you voted on by your teammates. You never know each day that we went to practice throughout those years that they seen you in that type of way. We carried ourselves in a different manner, and 3 of the 4 captains came off of defense. And that showed a lot to me that the guys that I played with, they thought that much of me, like, okay, I want him to be the captain in the last ball. One of the biggest ball games of Southern Miss history, and we captains.
Yep.
That's special.
Heck yeah, I got that picture of it right here, man. I'll put it on social media every now and then, man, the 4 of us. It's a special moment. And right when I came out that tunnel, we came out the tunnel, saw the fans, and Pitt didn't stand a chance, man. We smashed them 41-7, man. And
we did. If we didn't jump off sides we kept jumping off sides. It was about to drive JT absolutely crazy. So after we calmed down, there's too much energy. So after we calmed down the first drive, and then it was all over.
Man, it was over. Pitt didn't know what the heck hit them, and game's over, man. And we were Liberty Bowl champs, top 25 Conference USA champs, and what a career! You team leader in tackles you have, man. Future Hall of Famer. But man, was it kind of bittersweet at that moment? Because I remember I cried a little bit, knowing it was just all over, man.
Oh, ain't no doubt I did. I cried, and it was like, what's next? I've done this for 4 years. After the last ball game, I'm getting ready for the next season. What's next? And so we celebrated, and I knew guys were going in their own different directions. So every little moment after that, I just try to soak it up. But it was over. It was over. The Fat Lady had sung, and the end to a great career was over with. But I enjoyed the memories. It keeps me going.
Heck yeah, Troy, I don't know what else we could have done, man. Coach Bauer said himself, the greatest team he ever coached, the 97 football team. And I'm going to not argue with him, and I'm going to agree with him. And I'm going to say the greatest team in Southern Miss football history. We can talk about it off air. People disagree, but I'm Trell, am I wrong?
It's in the print. Just read the stats and all we've done. It's there. You can't argue with it.
Can't argue. I don't make the rules, Trell. It's all there. But man, it was bittersweet too for me, man, leaving you. I mean, we were even sweet mates in Van Hall. Just got to know each other so well our senior year. But it was tough saying goodbye, Trell. But the part our way. But man, you're such a leader, it's obvious, man. You're going to be one heck of a coach one year, and man, from '99 to 2007, you get to coach at Southern Miss. I mean, immediately with your coaching career, I mean, you coach a wide spectrum of positions. How was that for that run coaching at your alma mater?
Well, at the beginning, it was kind of, okay, man, y'all got to do better than this. But we were still good. My first game as a coach was at Penn State, knitting the lines. And I'm on the headphones, and JT's talking to me, and, I'm in charge of writing down plays and drawing plays. The first drive, I'm watching the ball game. I hadn't done no work. Boy, JT game, he rung me up for that one. So it was fun, to seeing the guys. You still had TJ them there, Ty Trahan that was still there, Adelius was still there. And, now I'm coming from the player role to the coaching role where if you're going to be a coach, you had to separate that. And so those guys respected me enough to know that, okay, I'm not Oh, I'm not Dirty Dog, Lytrel Pollard, and all them dirty names I used to have. Now I went to being Coach Pollard, and so I carried my way. And Coach Bible brought me in and just talked to me and said, if you want to do this, you got to separate yourself. And I did it, and was able to coach a lot of good football players from that span to '97. And we won some ball games. That '99 year was another really good year, and '03 was another good year. So it was fun. It was fun to grow as a man, to be mentored through. JT was my first coordinator. Coach Womack was my second coordinator, and Coach Nix was my third coordinator. All those guys end up being SEC coordinators, and I learned a lot from them, and I owe them a lot. I can never repay them enough for what they taught me.
Oh, heck yeah, that had to be a unique experience. So, man, coaching at your alma mater. Real quick, you brought up a name. So when we played, the other starting outside linebacker our senior year was T.J. Slaughter, arguably the most intense dude I've ever been around in my life. But I love T.J. That's my guy. I mean, just a friend you want, an alley fight. T.J.'s on your side, and you love that. But,
exactly.
Man, you remember playing with him in this intensity. How was it coaching him with that intensity?
You knew how he was because I played with him. So, let TJ be TJ. In order to handle TJ, you got to call him over to the side and say, hey, look, man, this is how we got to do this. You can't do it in front of everybody. Like, TJ, no, he don't handle that real well because he's high intensity. He ready to fight anybody then. So
anytime, anyone, anywhere,
once you got him on your side, once you talk to him and relay the message to him, everybody else will go follow the message. It wasn't no doubt who would go follow the message with him.
Oh, that's awesome, man. You got to coach some players, man. Michael Boley, Rod Davis. I mean, just the list goes on and on. You had a run there at Southern Miss. And after Southern Miss in '07, you wound up taking some gigs, Memphis, UT Martin, even Marshall, want to be a defensive coordinator, some stops. How was that little run for you right there at Southern Miss before we'll get to you coming back to Southern Miss?
Well, it was fun because when I left USM, I knew how it was and how to play great defense. I went to Memphis, came back to Mississippi College, went to UT Martin, went to Marshall. My wife said, you ever go sit down? I said, yeah, when I get comfortable again. I don't sit where I'm not comfortable. But, I went from coaching really, really good players. When I got to Mississippi College, it was a D3 school. None of those guys were on scholarship. So I'm coaching guys who want to be a doctor, want to be lawyers. So, you had to dumb it down a little bit and, appreciate the game of football again. And, going up to Huntington. Marshall kind of reminds me of Southern Miss because that's all they love up there is football. They care about nothing else. And so that was a fun little place to be in. But I wanted to come back home. So I kept running until I came back home.
Heck yeah, you did. And then in 2013, you get a second stint at Southern Miss. But Latrell, let's call it what it was when you got there. In 2012, the Ellis Johnson year happened. One of the most proud football programs in America went 0-12, man. And it was the worst turnaround in the history of college football. It was that bad. And you and Coach Monken, as head coach, are there to clean it up along with everybody else. How was that walking in there in 2013 with what had just happened the year before?
Well, if you go back to '93 when I was getting recruited, I think Southern Miss was 2-9, 3, and it was.
Oh yeah, my redshirt year, we were 2-8-1. It was unlike Southern Miss.
It was a bad year. So I told myself when I got there in '94, I was a part of rebuilding that program from a player standpoint. And so when I got a chance to go back in 13, I said, I know it can be done because I was part of it. We just got to get the right people in here, the right situation. And like I said, you got to get the right players. I don't care how good of a coach you are. If you ain't got no players, you ain't winning. And so when I got back, the first thing, talking to Coach Monk, all he wanted to know was about the Southern Miss tradition. He didn't care about nothing else. And so when we brought recruits in, he always made me get up and talk about how special it was to play in the Rock. And so those kids that we started recruiting, that's the first speech they heard is about what it is to play in the Rock. And so when I got, it's about 4 speeches a week. and it became fun. And those guys started believing in it. And on defense, I held them to that same standard. When I see them slacking, I held them to that same standard. But we still struggled in 13. That was hard to walk off that field. In some games, I knew we was going to lose before we went out there. And that's not normal in Southern Miss saying, I pretty much know we're going to lose before we got out there. So once again, I'm humbled, but it made me work harder.
Heck yeah, man. But you and Coach Monk, man, y'all turned that thing around and wound up getting to a bowl in 2015, playing for the Conference USA Championship. I mean, how'd that make you feel? I mean, that was 3 years of a lot of work, a lot of sleepless nights. I mean, the respect Southern Miss fans can give you and Todd Monken for turning that thing around is unimaginable. The amount of thanks we should give you. How was that feeling when you finally turned it around, got to a bowl and Conference USA Championship game?
You know, the finalists see the fans get excited about us again. You know, going playing at Louisiana Tech, going over there and getting that win. And, you know, we went to West Kentucky, which, you know, we got a couple of guys hurt. We should have won that ball game. But to go back and see the hard work you put in and it finally pays off. It pays off for you, it pays off for your players, and it pays off for the fans. That's one thing I always reminded my players about. Okay, it is about us, but it's about those fans that truly, truly love Southern Miss. And I always want to give back to them something to smile about, something to go to church to brag about, something to go to Walmart to brag about. I don't want to be the laughing stock, ever want to be the laughing stock.
Heck yeah, man. And you bring us some great points right there, talking about your coaching philosophies, man. What are some of the foundations that you try to bring to young men being such a great leader like you are? Just some of your philosophies.
My first one is I tell them, get out your feelings. And they're like, what you mean getting out my feelings? I said, it's going to be days where you're not going to feel like Coach Pollard loves me or the head coach loves me. Get out your feelings. Understand this. I want what's best for you as a player and a person. And once we get over that hurdle, we can always get across hurdles because we all humans. We all get our feelings hurt. I'm 47 years old and I can still get my feelings hurt. But once you get up front and tell them, get out your feelings, that's number one. And number two, never lie to me. Whether you're right or wrong, never lie to me. Because I can help you if you tell me the truth. If you start lying to me, I'm done with you. I'm done with you. And so once you tell them that, then they open up to you. You know, I like now, I tell them I got two boys. I got 127, I got 119. The lie you getting ready to tell, I've already heard it. So don't tell it to me. I've heard it. So they get it because they like knowing I got two kids that's boys, that's played, I played. So it's more of a respect. My resume gives me a little bit more respect when I talk about the foundation, when I sit those kids down.
Oh, heck yeah. Your playing career, your coaching career, you got a great resume, man. So you've been 4 or 5 years right there at Southern Miss, wound up going to Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College for a year, and now we're getting into your current role, man. The Jones Junior College defensive coordinator, assistant head coach, going into your 5th season. Man, how's that been being at Jones, man? Because that's a staple in Mississippi, Jones Junior College.
And you know what? And I knew it because when I grew up, my hometown was like 20 minutes from Jones Junior College. So I knew the program history and all of that. But to actually get there, it's like Jones is like Southern Miss on their high days, like 97. It's like 1997 every year. You know, we tell more kids no that we don't have room for you or we recruiting a guy that's this type of caliber player. You know, like we sit in our recruiting rooms, like if I want 5 corners, I might recruit 6 because I believe I'm going to get those 5. And so, and we hold it, you know, Coach Buck has done a good job. Even before him, Parker Dykes, I'm trying to think of his name, coached in the NFL. Ray Perkins, he's been a head coach at Jones College. You know, you're talking about an NFL coach, been a head coach at Jones College. And so it's fun. The kids, you know, it's a job interview for kids in junior college because they're trying to get to Southern Miss. They're trying to get to whatever group they're trying to get to. And I think right now, last year, I think I had like 8 or 9 guys from Jones that's playing on the Southern Miss team. So, you know, I'm talking about my alma mater. I said, you at least got to give them a look. That's one standard I have. You don't have to go, but you go give them a look.
Man, that's a great way to put it. And what defenses you've been having, man? 3 of the past 4 years, top 20 in the nation, man, going into your 5th season. So I'm sure you expect nothing less this season than some of the best, man. And speaking of Southern Miss, man, Coach Will Hall's there right now, and he's going into year 3, and he's building a great culture. And I just really feel like some of this culture that we built and that we had is kind of coming back. How do you feel about what they're doing at Southern Miss right now, what they've been building?
Well, I love it, because I think he's starting with family, the atmosphere of family. I think he's starting, I know he's starting with Mississippi recruiting, the Louisiana recruiting, the Panhandle recruiting, the Alabama recruiting. That's where we built greatness. Within 3 hours of our campus, probably 75% of our team could get home within a 3-hour radius. And so when you start doing that and you see the Find a Way Fridays, Coach, strength coach, LA, he has the energy. And that's what, like my son that's here now, he said, Coach beginners, but he brings me the energy. You know what I'm saying? So I love it. I think Coach Hall is doing a really, really good job. And one thing I like about him the most is when he got the job, he just started reaching out to former players and open the door. Anytime you want to go out there, you can go. The door is never open. You're free to walk around. It's your building. He's just there working. He treated it like it's your house.
Oh, heck yeah, man. I had both those guys on my show, Coach LA and Coach Hall. And I love Coach Lance. I mean, he's a New Orleans guy like me, man. And we talked a little Yak talk too, a little city New Orleans talk when he was on. But he's a great leader, young man. So real quick, Jones, man, what are some expectations of this season? What can the fans expect Jones football to be like?
Well, we're going to be tough. We're going to fly.
I know that.
but the last 2 years, we went 8-0, been #1 in the country, but we hasn't finished the year. If we get in that situation again, we will finish. Promise you, we will finish.
Oh, I love it, man. You got me believing, Trell. I know you will, man, when you leading the way. So, but man, getting into family topics too. I mean, your Southern Miss career. I mean, you've just done it all, man. You played there, you coached there, man. Your 2 sons have been able to play there, man. Ty being a 4-year starter there, and now your freshman son, LeBron, on the team, man. How has that been for you, man? We're getting old. We got kids playing college football.
We getting old, but you know what? It's been a joy. It's been a joy. Both of my kids told me when they was getting recruited, I'm not going to Southern Miss. I ain't going where you was going. But then it was like, Dad, where else I'm going to go? I grew up in the black and gold. I said, I've been trying to tell you that. But you don't tell them where to go. You try to give them the opportunity. But then when it came back down to it, they said, Dad, I want to go play where you played at. And to hear them tell me that, I don't care what type of career they have. I know they're going to be good student athletes. I know they're going to give the coaches everything they got. But for my kids to just go to Southern Miss, I love it. Because, for me to play there, to coach there, and to have 2 kids to go there and give it all to them, like Southern Miss, I'll give you my all. That's all I can tell you. I'm giving you my all.
Man, it's got to be cool for them, too, playing there, knowing their dad was a Hall of Famer, one of the best nasty bunch defenders of all time there, man. So that's got to be great for them. And real quick, I love moments at Southern Miss. I live out here in Lafayette, Louisiana. It's kind of a reunion, family reunion. I saw you at a game last year. I'm like, Trell. You're like, oh, shit. And then Angela and Christina, your wife, they got to meet. And, it's just how's Christina? Angela says, hey, too.
She's doing good. She's about to finish her doctorate, so she's been doing a lot of schoolwork. And me and Claiborne had to stay away from. She's big education-wise, and I want to finish the doctorate so we can have a normal house again.
Oh, very, very cool, man. Yeah, Angela's like, I love her, man. And when the wives hit it off, I hadn't seen you in a little bit. It's always a great time at the Rock, man. So kind of getting it closing here, Latrell. What's some maybe messages or some kind of something you might want to say to the Southern Miss Nation from the great Lytrel Pollard?
Well, first of all, the first thing I want to say, if you go be a Southern Miss fan, be a Southern Miss fan in the good times and the bad, because it's 2 sides of that coin. And I've been on both sides of that coin. And nothing worse than seeing wavering fans as they play. If you go be for me, be for me. That's the first message. The second message, I believe with all my heart, Coach Hall has this thing going in the right direction. Trust the process and what he's doing. Support as much as you can, physically, financially, and just come to the ball game. If you don't even go to the ball game, just come tailgate, give a great campus atmosphere, and just love on those kids. I had to remind myself this in coaching. Remember, they're somebody's child. So when you got there making those comments, this person did this, that person did that, that is somebody's child. And so treat it like they're still a kid, even though things are a little bit different, but it's still somebody's child.
Man, what a great message right there from one of the greatest leaders at Southern Miss, one of the guys I admired more than anybody on the team, just a hell of a football player too, Hall of Famer right there, man. Latrell, I couldn't wait to get you on this show, man, and just talk old times and good stories because, dang, like I said, you and I came up through the ranks together, man. So thank you so much for being on the show today.
Well, I appreciate you calling me and having me on, man. Like talking to me, like we're being in the field house talking all over again.
Oh man, same old. I can talk to you all day. We can keep this going for hours, but I got to have a cutoff time, unfortunately. But Trell, I think what the fans might like is you and I closing this show, giving them all a big Southern Miss
to the top.
All right, Trell. Much love. We'll catch up soon, man.
You too, bro.
All right, my man. Oh, it was great catching up with my old friend, Lytrel Pollard, right there. Well, that's it for another edition of Anyone, Anywhere, Anytime. And the only thing I ask is something free and easy to do. And that's just help spread the word of the show. If you're seeing this on Twitter or release that I put out there, please retweet the show if you're enjoying it. Or if you're on Instagram or Facebook, repost or just send some messages out to people, text, what have you, that you're enjoying the show. And it's a pretty good thing to see. And well, that's it. Until next time, as always, it's Southern Miss to the top.